tell me what should they mean to normal people who are just worried that there aren't going to be enough places for our kids to live and stay in the Granite State. Our businesses aren't going to be able to find employees because they can't find a place to live either.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of tongue-in-cheek way to answer it is live free, but within certain severe regulations.
This Up to Speed podcast is made possible by Legislative Solutions. Legislative Solutions knows New Hampshire's politics inside and out. With years of experience and a results-driven approach, they're the go-to team for anyone looking to make an impact at the State House. Find them at legislative-solutions.com. New Hampshire Journal presents Up to Speed, bringing you up to speed on what's going on in the key sectors of New Hampshire's economy with some of the people who make it happen. I'm Michael Graham, managing editor of New Hampshire Journal. Up to Speed made possible by our friends at Legislative Solutions. So, what is happening in the world of construction, in particular home construction here in New Hampshire? Joshua Reed with the Associated Builders and Contractors of New Hampshire and Vermont. Let's ignore the Vermont part. Joins us here. Josh, welcome and please bring us up to speed.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it, and it's great to be here with you and your subscribers today. You know, it's one of those things where we've got so much pent-up demand for housing, single-family, and especially multifamily here in the state, where things are still hopping. Construction economy is still very much a very strong part of our sector here in the economy of New Hampshire.
And yet, throughout the conversation for the current budget debate and the legislative session, the focus is on the need for more housing. When we at NHJournal.com poll people, what's the top issue? Housing, always the top issue in the past 18 months. Just amazing, not even the economy, but ever housing, just astonishing. And so one of the questions we ask our guests here on Up to Speed is, if you happen to have a magic wand and you could get the legislature to pass and the governor to sign one bill that would have the most impact on the mission at Associated Builders and Contractors, what would it be?
Yeah, it is related to housing. That wand has been waived. I think SB 153 is it's going to sound pretty dry, but this is a driveway permitting process reform. It's going to be
driveway permitting processing.
Listen, it takes forever to get your driveway permitted by DOT to get a curb cut, believe it or not.
Okay.
It could take, it's insane. When you're trying to build like 20 or more units, it could take months or literally years to get a permit.
For a driveway.
For a driveway, yeah, simply put. The most basic thing that you don't even think about every day is as you think about your drive to Dunkin', what flavor of coffee you're going to get. You're more worried about that than a curb cut. But the truth is, it's so important because for any developer that's putting in new housing development, that is a huge deal because there's a lot of permitting regulations involved, and it all makes sense, right? You got to figure out, do you need a turning lane? What's traffic control going to be like? Right. There's such a demand right now that DOT has been trying to catch up with what's required from the commercial side and residential. So SB 153 would allow a fast track option to let developers say, this is great, we're going to follow the process, but let us pay for what DOT doesn't have time or ability to hire someone to do. They got the third party consultant, Fastlane. And my understanding is the Senate's okay with the House changes, and that's going to go to the governor next for signature.
Well, excellent way to go. So the magic wand worked for you. No one else can get it to work. I don't know what's going on. I want to ask you about some numbers that we were talking about NHJournal very recently. There was a ranking of the states based on these metrics. Mm-hmm. What percentage of all the home building permits did that state, issue in 2023? And what percentage of the population lives in that state? South Carolina, where I grew up, the percentage of all the building permits is twice as high as the population. It's a building boom. Their housing supply their housing costs are low. Their supply is growing. New Hampshire, we have about 0.4% of the population. We only issued about 0.3% of all the building permits. In other words, you're 25% down from neutral, and ranked across the country, we have one of the worst numbers for population versus building permits. You will be stunned to learn, by the way, that in Massachusetts, there's a 50% gap between the population and building permits. So run all that through your experience, Josh, at ABC, and tell me, what should they mean to normal people who are just worried that there aren't going to be enough places for our kids to live and stay in the Granite State. Our businesses aren't going to be able to find employees because they can't find a place to live either.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of tongue-in-cheek way to answer it is live free, but within certain severe regulations. And it's those regulations are great, but we have to have a good balance between the built environment and the natural environment. And I think the current administration recognizes that, and a lot of the efficiencies that they're looking to bring into government is helping to reform that system. So it's not that we're against development as a state; we just want to do it right, and we need to really reform and reevaluate how we do things here. So I'd say anyone that's looking to move here, or has even kids that are living in their basement that they want to bump out of the ADU and get them in their own home. It takes time, but the system is being reformed right now. But we still got a lot of work left to do on that.
We mentioned ADUs. The Senate just passed the ADU bill, and that means that local governments are not going to be able to step in and tell a property owner, you know what, you don't need this extra unit that you can rent out to your kid or to a neighbor or to make a mother-in-law suite out of. You don't need that. Does ABC have a stance on where the right place to regulate is? Is it town by town, county by county, or for the state?
Well, I think it's got to be one of those things where we got to educate our local leaders a lot more about what development really looks like. I can tell you just in my small town, there's been a lot of really good conversations about, things are changing, economically it's changed. People are coming in from out of the area who could afford a house and renovate that. They may not find the $1 million home, but they can buy a $600,000 home and turn it into $1 million home.
Sure.
So suddenly that starter home's gone. It's evaporated. So your towns are changing anyway. So rather than being the stick in the mud that we have been for 35 years about zoning, let's look at it and say, well, we did this zoning to prevent it from changing, but it's changing economically. Right. So why don't we control that change with better regulations?
And so what's on your list of better regulations? Other than curb cuts, which I now am completely obsessed by. And when we're done here, I'm going to start Googling frantically.
Yeah, listen, I think one of the other big things too is because ABC housing is certainly a big part for us, but it's also a matter of some of the commercial stuff we deal with, which affects some of the multifamily housing. Some of the zoning requirements or some of the requirements the state has on permitting for lot size when it comes to like a study on environmental review and impact, environmental permitting, alteration terrain permits are a huge thing. When you have a greenfield that's brand new and you don't know what's there, I get it, you got to study it. But why did the same standards apply to a parking lot in downtown Nashua that's the same size? So it's about making those kind of changes, right? That makes sense and allows people to get things done a little bit quicker.
One of the ideas that I thought was interesting is the idea that if you want to put something commercial into a residentially zoned area, a lot of problems. You're going to have to really jump a lot of that makes sense. But if you want to put a residence in a commercially zoned area, if you got a place and there was warehouses and maybe, at one end, the warehouses, aren't really used, or maybe the gentrifying is approaching from that side of town, it's already, why shouldn't it be an at will to put residential in something that's zoned commercial that has no impact on what people are afraid of, which is, I have my house and someone just put a gun factory, to use the most extreme example, next door, right next to the MAGA flag company. Oh my gosh,
Hey, you're talking about people that produce jobs here for the economy here, but no, I get the concern. No one wants to live next door to something. It's a big corrugated steel-sided box, but I
what
think
about that idea that if you what's the objection? What are people in factories going to go, hey, I don't want to look at a bunch of people living there in their apartments when I work, I mean, I get the flip, what I'm saying? I get the, hey, I don't want to look at the factory, but I don't get the factory guys. Why would they care if an apartment building or duplex, whatever, open in their zoned area?
Yeah, I think there's multiple bills out there that address this issue, I think, to some degree or another, right? So I don't know if any particular one bill is better than another, but it does force that conversation. And that part of that conversation is we got to look and say our existing zoning structure is really only a couple generations old. I mean, this state predates America. I mean, there's settlements here that are from the 1600s. And when I think of commercial development, I want people to think about those downtown villages that they love. Right. You cannot build a modern day Amherst. You can't build another Epping today because of the way we zone today. So it's about fixing the zoning to realize, hey, listen, people want walkable, decent net downtowns. You got to make sure commercial will be residential. So I think there's some middle ground somewhere in there.
So what's the most exciting idea that's happening in the world of construction development, whether it's commercial or residential?
Yeah, I think here for commercial, just a lot of trying to be creative to navigate around some of these tariff issues, which again are on pause. So it's a kind of a hot mess to figure out what's going on there. But just trying to make pro forma work. Pro forma is all the numbers that go into making a project viable. What's the rent going to be? What's the cost to borrow money? Because with the Federal Reserve saying they're not going to touch interest rates, that's got a few developers going. Maybe I will continue to hold building something for now. And so just trying to find more creative ways to make a project work. Alternative funding or financing is probably one of the new things that are coming up here. But for us regulatorily in New Hampshire, I think one of the best things that could happen is if at some point this legislature could entertain something called fair and open competition on public work projects, because there's a big opportunity right now where the state misses out on a lot of great contractors that would work for them if not for the fear of government mandates being handed down, saying you have to build only one certain way.
Right. And one of the conversations that I've had with people that's kind of surprised them is everyone's worried about, making some money, their kids going to college, you're not sure college is worth it anymore. Look at all the money you can make in the trades.
Oh, big time.
And then you can't find the workers because the kids don't want to do the work. And I'm this look, and my kids are, right at that demographic of going into that. And
yep.
I hate to say that look on their face of, wait, I got to work for a living? I thought I was going to have like a blog or, you know what I mean? I was going to, I was going to serve coffee at a coffee place and people were just going to give me $100 a day in tips. So what is this work for a living thing? And so I wonder, is it a jobs issue? Is it a training issue? Or is it a cultural character issue? That is, we still don't trust, value,
Sure.
admire, whatever the right word is, believe in the future when it comes to the trades.
I think that's changing though, because 10 years ago was a problem where we didn't have enough craft workers. Today it's a crisis. Right. So one thing we just did as ABC to talk about Vermont for a hot second is we just founded something called the Vermont Construction Academy, which is the first in New England school where someone can come in and learn how to be a carpenter, a mason, an electrician, and be paired up with an employer right away. We're going to give you those skills to go to work on a $6 million commercial project, no problem, be confident in what you're doing. So the narrative is changing quite a bit, but we got a heck of a lot of work left to do in front of us, right? I mean, listen, I was just at the bank the other day. I was talking with a teller. They told me they're earning about $12 an hour. When I said, well, you can go to work for one of my contractors pushing a broom with no skill, pushing a broom for $20 an hour plus benefits, 401k,
right,
healthcare, all those benefits. She goes, well, it's only $8 more an hour. I'm like, no, that's almost a 50% increase in your income. How can you not want to do that?
I don't want this person handling my money. That's my concern. The math part is what concerns me.
Well, Michael, that was the other thing that crossed my mind too. I'm like, geez, do I really want to be dealing with this? Don't check those numbers on that certified check.
Well, look, but she's got to know that her industry is one of those industries where AI is going to have a tremendous impact. It already is. And I also want to ask you about that. Sure. What does AI mean to you? And if someone said to you, I'm really encouraging the young people I know to, go into the trades because it's AI proof. Is there really any part of the economy that's going to be AI proof, do you think?
I think AI in our industry stands for awesome innovation, because what's going to happen with AI is you're going to see a lot of cool stuff happen in terms of making the job easier. There are so many needs for so many skilled craft people where even if AI is a disruptor in all markets, including construction, there's still such a demand for high wage jobs in construction. You're still going to find work. And where AI is going to be helpful is helping the design of the building, but in some way eventually make it onto the job site. I've got a couple of contractors do drywall. Talked about how they just saw a machine run by AI that will do the mud and tape, which is the seaming. Yeah, I mean, he says it looked pretty impressive. He goes, we might be investing as a company here in New Hampshire, so stay tuned. But he says, I still need guys to run it. I still need people doing the mudding and drying around the machine. It's just going to be a supplement. It's not going to replace people. Right. Our industry is going to be the one to come in.
Having done mudding and tape myself, where was that machine? Because I
know. Listen, it's an art form, Michael. I tell you, we did a video series called ibuildnh.org a couple of years ago. It was the hero story about being a craft worker, and we talked to this one woman who was a first generation American, I think from Guatemala, and the way she was mudding the walls is just beautiful. I mean, she just did her job right, and I think she's probably pulling in almost six figures a year.
That's not me. I'm so bad. I'm so bad. My dad, as a teenager, would basically rent me out as labor, and I always got stuck with the crap jobs. Like on painting, I never got to do the fun painting. I had to do the trim.
That's okay. Oh, you did. So he's trying to make you be a finished carpenter. Is he trying to do?
Yeah,
okay.
No, he wanted me to do the stuff no one wants to do. No one wants to do the tape. No one wants to do the close in work. You want to get there at the roller? That's fun. Boom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. So there's an argument, and going back to those numbers about building permits and population.
Yeah.
It was interesting. What were the states where you had, a lot more building permits versus the percentage? South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas. There's an argument that, look, that's where the part of the world that's full of your kind of workers and your kind of projects is. That's where wide open spaces, and you can build commercial from the scratch. They're residential, they're growing already, and you're fighting an uphill battle here in New Hampshire. What is your view of that take? And what are the things that can be done to maybe change the slope of the hill so it's not quite so up? Get the grade down a little bit.
Well, we've got great excavation and site work contractors that can handle that. That's the easy part, right? Listen, I mean, like the permitting process, streamlining that, because to get anything built, you got to go to your DOT. You got to go. First of all, you got to go to your local planning board, your zoning board, and then you got to go to DOT. You got to go to DES. You got to all these spots you have to go to. You have to know where to go and how to go. All those things take time, and if there's a way to smooth that out and fast track that. I think that would be a great, tremendous way to help expedite things a lot more. One of the other things I heard an interesting point saying it's only like less than 20% of the property or of the land mass in New Hampshire is buildable.
Right.
It's mostly forested.
Wow. So you've got to use what you got. But once again, that's back to my argument. What about the argument that basically the Northeast is done? Its heyday was 3 generations ago, and now it's never going to be more than some law firms and, upscale waterfront hotels. And that's what you got.
Well, those are cool, and we have some of those. But then why do we have New Balance moving into Manchester? And they just built this massive new 100,000 square foot facility, Consigli Construction with the CM on it. And next door to it, I understand, is another prepped site. So if they want to expand, it's ready to go. So we're finding ways to fit those in, kind of like a game of Tetris back on your Nintendo. We're making that L brick come down and fit in at the last second. It's going to happen.
Hey, I loved the Amazon proposal when they were shopping everybody.
Oh yeah,
the Amazon 2, whatever they called it, and the Londonderry side. I thought it was brilliant. It was a great proposal.
It was awesome.
But one of the things that hit it hard, energy prices.
Brutal.
And they're just there. And there's an argument. The other argument is, as long as Massachusetts and New York decide how much access to natural gas New Hampshire has, you might as well go to Florida, because you got to have the energy, and the prices won't come down. We're still getting ships bringing us LNG. I'm like, what is this, like 1870? The blood. I
know, and you got the Jones Act mixed in that too. It's ridiculous. It adds a good quarters and dollars onto the cost per gallon of propane and natural gas. Exactly. And you're so right. I remember New York State killed I think Constitutional Pipeline across southern New York, and all the environmental good groups killed it in New York, claiming this is for the betterment of New York. I'm like, no, because actually now if you look at it, New England is actually using more carbon-based fuels that are worse for the environment than natural gas would have been if they just allowed the pipeline to come through. So I would say, if anything, it'd be interesting to see what happens with the current EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the years through some of my work. I wonder if he would have some leverage through EPA to kind of encourage or expedite that through, because we desperately need that here in New England.
And that happens. One of the things that we know they're talking about the White House, and they're trying to figure out how to respect federalism, but at the same time step in. And the feds obviously do that all the time. They Bigfoot the states all the time. It's hard to see something better. I have one last question for you. So since we have a magic wand, we also have a time machine. I know some people. You need anything, talk to me. So I put you in our time machine. I send you back to when you first started working with ABC, and you can tell yourself one thing that's happening today that would shock yourself the most. What would it be?
What would it be? What would be the most shocking thing?
Would it be AI? Would it be the kind of money that workers are making doing building and contracting? Would it be the environment we're in? What would it be?
I think the biggest thing for our industry, it's the biggest challenge our industry has, which is the workforce. We've got a shortage of 500,000 craft workers right now in this country. And if I were to go back 15 years ago and said, you need to build more craft schools, and you need to really focus the education and change how our states do K through 12 education about workforce, and having those conversations, and starting in middle school, really, we do a good job with CTEs in high school. It starts in 7th and 8th grade, having a conversation, say, you could be a doctor or lawyer, and I think you should explore that, but you can make just as much, if not more money. Right. Because by the time you get out, you're going to be in Starbucks earning $12 an hour and with debt. And whereas your buddy who went off to be a plumber is earning $80,000 starting 3 years out of his apprentice program, and no debt, has the house with 3-car garage, a boat, and a truck. I mean, there's a big difference. And if I were to go back, that would be the one thing I'd say is just push this more.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And I think it's educational. And like I said earlier, I think it's cultural, and the culture is starting to turn. I think one reason the culture is starting to turn is that you've got these new homeowners who are trying to find people to do these tasks that maybe when they were in college, they were looking down. Oh, what is that? And now they're like, oh my God, you're the most, screw lawyers and doctors. I got 1 million of those. Find me an electrician. That's what I need. Find me a guy who can renovate my porch.
I know people in this industry, and like when my water heater went once, I'm like, who do I call? And it's like, hey, I got no one. I was so happy when I found a guy. I was so happy at 2:00 in the morning, give $300 to fix it, because I'm like,
exactly.
It's what you're going to do. So it's just incredible to think what the opportunity is for being a craft worker in the state. And if your kids are interested, I'll tell you, I wouldn't do my job if I would be telling you right now. If they want to go try it out with one of my commercial contractors, they can make pretty darn good money right now and learn.
And there's also another aspect too. There's a record low of young men who are looking for full-time jobs right now. And 1 in 5 is not even looking for a full-time job.
Amazing.
And one of the this long article I read, talked about basically kind of like the life satisfaction part, that they were spending time playing video games, they were doing all this dumb stuff, you do whatever. But that my thesis is there's something so satisfying about work to completion. That is, you start a job, you work on the job, you stand outside. I learned this from my dad because he made me do all this stuff. I learned this when I ran political campaigns. It was, you at the end, you either won or you lost, but I'm saying, like, you saw it. Sure. And you have so many people who are looking for something in their life that has not just, the paycheck, but also some meaning. And it is just, it is a really satisfying feeling as a human being to be part of a project, to know you added value to that project. And then when it's done, you look at it and go, that was me. And I think if more young people, particularly young men, could perceive that, I think you'd have people rushing to your door looking for this opportunity.
Michael, I'm going to hire you as one of our goodwill ambassadors.
No. Message. When I see people working for a living, I walk away, man. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've never worked for a living, and I'm not going to start now. But I've had a great time letting you bring me and the rest of our New Hampshire Journal viewers up to speed here. Josh, thanks so much for your time. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I think if they want to visit our website, abcnhvt.org, we've got everything right there, and you can learn a lot more about what we're doing to get people into the trades. And if you're enjoying this video, we also have an audio podcast version, whatever. It's all at NHJournal.com. And you can sign up for our daily newsletter with all the inside political news you can't get anywhere else at NHJournal.com. I'm Michael Graham. Thank you so much for joining us here on Up to Speed. This Up to Speed podcast is made possible by Legislative Solutions. Legislative Solutions knows New Hampshire's politics inside and out. With years of experience and a results-driven approach, they're the go-to team for anyone looking to make an impact at the State House. Find them at legislative-solutions.com.